4 weeks with us. If you've not been here in the last few weeks or you missed one, all of these you can listen to all of these at our website, kingschurch.net. You can listen right there, or it's also on Google Play or Apple Podcasting. You can have that to your phone, and it automatically brings in the messages. So if you missed some, you can go back and listen, but we're going to jump in for this last one. Exodus chapter 19. Let me get my notes out. Oh, we do have a couple of announcements. Sorry, Chuck, I'm just kind of got off track. Let me give these, though, guys. You know what? I'll give them at the end. It's all right. I want to get into the word. I'll give these at the end. So in Exodus chapter 19, God's people had been brought out of slavery in Egypt. You know, the 10 plagues, the let my people go, the Pharaoh, Moses, all of that incredible story crossing over the Red Sea. Now they're in the desert. Now they're at the base of this mountain. God is about to address them for the first time. And he calls Moses up to the top of the mountain, and God's going to say some things to them. He's going to give them the law, but he says one pretty powerful sentence to them before anything else. He says, Moses, this is what you are to tell the people. He says, you yourselves have seen what I did to Egypt, how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now, although the whole earth is mine, says God, you will be for me my treasured possession. You will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. And to me, this is the whole point of all this, is that is one of the most pivotal verses, I believe, in the Old Testament, because it reflects what does God really want for his people. What's his heart? And he addresses, I believe, 3 realities. In that one statement, he addresses 3 realities that are going to be true, not just for that generation thousands of years ago, it's true for you and I. And the first reality he addressed was what? A question of what? Anybody remember? Identity. Who am I? And God says, the question of identity, you are my treasured possession. You belong to me. I love you. I chose you. And that's the first stone to be laid in our life, is who are we? And if that is answered properly, everything else can really be built on top of that. And then the next thing that we looked at last week was the question of character. How are we to live? How do we behave? How do we interact with the world and with one another? How do we live our lives and make decisions? And God says you're also to be a holy nation. We talked about what that means to be holy, what that means to be set apart. And this final reality that God addresses is one of destiny. What are we to do? We know who we are. We know how we're to live. Now, what is our mission in the world? What's our purpose in the world? I'm sure you probably have this book on your bookshelf, The Purpose-Driven Life. Raise your hand if you have it. It came out, I'm thinking, 20 years ago, I bet, by Rick Warren. It was by far one of the best-selling books of all time. Millions and millions, tens of millions of copies sold. And the fundamental question that Warren addressed in this book is, why on earth am I here? And people were snatching this book up. And not just Christians, not just church people. Everybody was reading this because it was getting into this one question that every single human asks at some point in their life. Why am I here? Why am I on this earth? Anybody ever asked that or wondered that? Maybe some of you are wondering that still, What have I been created for? So Exodus chapter 19, 7 through 11 is beginning to address this very thing. Why on earth have we been created? And God says to the people, he says, you will be for me a kingdom of priests. And that one phrase, I think, sums up my destiny and your destiny. It's what we've been made for. In fact, and I remember reading this for the first time years ago, and I was so struck by this. I was just thinking about that's an amazing thing. That's an amazing thing that everyone could be a priest, right? And in fact, I liked it so much, I named my son after this, Cohen. You might have met Cohen, the little shy, quiet 5-year-old. If he's missing, look for the highest place in the room, because he's probably on that. Like he climbed on our top of our refrigerator the other day. And he means well, but he said, son, you can't scale walls. Cohen is sort of the English form of the Hebrew word for priest. And if maybe people of Jewish background, and perhaps you've heard the last name of Cohen, like the Cohen brothers, these 2 filmmakers, or Sacha Baron Cohen, who was an actor, or Leonard Cohen, the composer, back 20, 30, 40 years ago. That's a traditionally Jewish surname, and it refers to a particular family in Judaism who can trace their lineage back to the priesthood. And you didn't have the last name Cohen unless you could trace your lineage all the way back to the Levitical priesthood, because the priests, they were the Kohanim. That's the plural form. A priest is a Cohen, and the plural form is a Kohanim. So all through history, up to the present day, the Jewish families who were of the tribe of Levi, who were of the priesthood, they had the last name Cohen. And I, in thinking and praying about this for my son, I just said, Lord, I want this destiny for my son. I want him to be a priest. And I didn't mean that literally. I don't want him to join the priesthood in the Catholic Church, or I'm not talking about the vocation. I'm talking about that call to what we're about to unpack here in this next 20, 25 minutes. And I said, oh, Lord, and I felt like the Lord said, name him that then. Name him Cohen, name him priest. So I did that. So Kohanim, it means priest, but if you were sort of to literally translate it, it means one who serves. That makes sense. But also means one who draws near. One scholar says it actually kind of comes from this root, what it means to draw near. And I love the first one, serve, but I especially love this other meaning, to draw near. And here's why I love it so much. Look in Exodus chapter, flip ahead one chapter to 20. So God is sort of like called Moses up. The people are down here, right? Because the people are afraid. They don't want to come up to the mountain. The thunder and the fire and the smoke and all these things. They're like, no, we'll stay back, Moses, you go up. And Moses goes up. So Moses, in one effect, is sort of like he's the first one. So in chapter 20, go to verse 18. When the people saw the thunder and lightning and heard the trumpet and saw the mountain in smoke, they trembled with fear. They stayed at a distance. Y'all say stayed at a distance. They stayed back, right? They don't want anything to do with this. This is kind of how I feel like, whenever I go to like Red River Gorge or places like the Grand Canyon, and the Natural Bridge, you ever been on the top of Natural Bridge? That's terrifying to me. And Natural Bridge is what, a good 40 feet across? Like, I am dead center right here. If I go up at all, I am not going to the left. I'm not going to the right. I want to be right here in the center of gravity because I do not want to get near and fall off. These people stayed at a distance and said to Moses, speak to us yourself and we will listen, but do not have God speak to us or we will die. That's awesome. Moses said to the people, don't be afraid. Guys, don't be afraid. I know it's like a lot of stuff, but God loves you. He said himself that he brought you to himself. Do not be afraid. God has come to test you so that the fear of God will be with you to keep you from sinning. The people remained at a distance while Moses approached the thick darkness where God was. Another translation says the people stood far off while Moses drew near. It's a big deal. That's what a priest means. One who draws near. And God is going to institute in the chapters to come the Levitical priesthood. He's going to say, Aaron, you are the first. You are from the tribe of Levi going back 500 years. But Aaron, you and your sons will serve me as priests in my tabernacle. And it was an official order. It was a structured thing. They were to wear the certain kind of clothes, and they weren't going to have their own property. Their home was going to be in the temple of the Lord. And they were the ones who were responsible for all of the temple worship. They were responsible for all of the sacrifices. They were responsible. He's got, and in the books to come, Leviticus and Numbers and those, they're the ones who are going to go and offer sacrifices and be able to go into the most holy place on that certain day of atonement. So God is going to institute this priesthood, including the high priest, which is going to continue all the way up until the time of Jesus. But before all of that happens, God looks at his people and says, all of you are going to be for me royalty. You're going to be royal priests. You're going to be a kingdom of priests, every single one of you. Don't miss this. we think of the priesthood, we think of the Old Testament priests as ones who were set apart and chosen, and they are. Only the certain ones can go in. But don't forget that before any of that is set in place, God says, all of you are going to be this for me. So what does that mean? What does that mean for you and I? Does that mean that all of us need to sort of take these holy orders? That we need to, go join the monastery and become priests and wear the little thing, or that we go to seminary and become, clergy or pastors or whatever it is? That's not what God has in mind. That's not what he's talking about. For him, this is a spiritual destiny that they're going to fulfill. So I want to give you 3 things that I believe is our destiny if we follow this, if we follow with God. And we're going to use the word Kohanim because that's what it means. We're priests. The plural is Kohanim. So first one is this. Kohanim, your destiny is to be a Kohanim, one who draws near to God. That's it. That's the first thing. Revelation chapter 5. And I'll give you 3 things of what that means in a minute, but let's flip here to Revelation chapter 5. I'm getting ahead of myself, y'all. Does that ever happen? This is what we're made for. We're made to be ones who are in God's presence. I was almost so tempted to read this during our worship time, but the Lord said no. He said don't. But 4 and 5, this is a snapshot. This is a picture of ultimate reality. I'm just going to read it, and then I'll come back to it in a minute. Revelation 5, beginning in verse 6. And between the throne and the 4 living creatures, and among the elders I saw a lamb standing, as though it had been slain, with 7 horns and with 7 eyes, which are the sevenfold Spirit of God sent out into all the earth. And he went and took the scroll from the right hand of him who is seated on the throne. And when he had taken the scroll, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, each holding a harp and golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. And they sang a new song, saying, "Worthy are you to take the scroll and to open its seals, for you were slain, and by your blood you ransomed people for God from every tribe and language and people and nation." Verse 10, "And you have made them a kingdom and priests to our God, and they shall reign on the earth." Our destiny is to be a kingdom and priest to our God and to reign on the earth. The end is already done. It just calls us to walk this reality out. So we have 3 tasks then at Kohanim. The first, we minister to God in prayer and worship. And we think of the ancient priests, we often think that their role is to intercede for the people, right? To go in and to sacrifice the blood on there and to atone for all the sin. But before that, their first role is to minister to God in prayer and worship. And why that matters, the Old Testament sacrifices, they were not the end to themselves. They were a means to an end. The sacrifice needed to be made, the moment needed to be made, so the priests could draw near to God and minister to him. In Revelation 4 and 5, this is a picture of what reality really is and will be like. Constant worship, constant prayer. And some of you are thinking, that sounds really boring. I promise you that will not be the case when we're surrounded by this, when we're living in this reality. Westminster Catechism says, man's chief end is to glorify God and enjoy him forever. Our primary purpose in life is ministering to the Lord. But again, our primary purpose in life is to minister to the Lord in prayer and worship. And if you've not found the joy in doing that, it's not because you weren't made to do it. You just haven't found the joy in doing it yet. And there is joy to be found in it. I'm thrilled about the last 20 years. There's been this explosion of houses around the nation. 1999, two simultaneous 24-hour prayer movements started. Those in Kansas and the other one, I believe, in Europe somewhere. Individuals in the exact same month, the exact same year began responding to the call of the Lord to start 24/7 prayer houses, continuing to this day. And more of those around, are happening around the world and around the U.S. with 5 or 6 other pastors in the last 2 weeks who are committed to bringing 24/7 prayer here to Lexington, and we're going to be part of that too. That's part of our DNA. That's part of our threefold mission, is to be a house of prayer. Because our primary purpose is not evangelism. Our primary purpose is worship and prayer. That's why we were made. Here's the crazy thing. I read this, but it may be easy to skip. But read it again, Revelation 5. And when he had done it, 4 living creatures, the 24 elders, fell down before the Lamb. Each one had a harp, and they were holding golden bowls full of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. So each one has this bowl. What's inside the bowl? What are prayers? Whose prayers? Of the priests? Of the pastors? Who? Who are the saints? Raise your hand if you're a saint. That's right. Your prayers, listen to me, this is reality. This is not hyperbole. This is not metaphor. The prayers that you are petitions to God, the prayers that you're pouring out, even if you don't feel like they're doing anything, they're ascending into the throne room of God every time you pray them. And they're being gathered together in this place. Now watch what happens. Flip on over to Revelation chapter 8, beginning in verse 3. Those prayers, sometimes we think vapor, they just dissipate, and where do they go? And maybe God didn't hear. Maybe God forgot. Revelation chapter 8, beginning in verse 3. Another angel who had a golden censer came and stood at the altar. He was given much incense to offer. Remember, it was in the first bowl of incense. And what was incense? It was your prayers and my prayers. He was given much incense to offer, the prayers of all the saints on the golden altar before the throne. So this angel is responsible for these prayers, for yours, the ones that you've been pouring out for your loved ones, for your grandkids, for your sons and daughters, and for everything else. All coming up. Smoke of the incense, together with the prayers of the saints, before God, the angel's hands. Then the angel took the censer. What's in the censer? Prayer. Filled it with fire from the altar and hurled it onto the earth. Your prayers will return with fire to the earth. Your prayers will return with fire to the earth. Why? Because there's power in prayer. There is power in worship, because it's what we're made to do. So our first task, we minister to God in prayer and worship. We draw near to God. We're near to Him. Or we live lives of just being in His presence, and we see it here. That's all we want. That's what we desire here. Second thing is this co-theme that you and I, we offer a ministry of reconciliation to the world. That's our second task. We intercede. So the overflow of prayer, once we've positioned ourselves in prayer and worship, the overflow of that is what? It's ministry to other people. You can't be in the presence of God very long before you have His heart for people. You can't sit in the prayer room very long before you have this unction to go out the street and minister His love and His power to people. So it's an overflow of prayers ministry. That's why prayer events often do historic revivals. Every major revival in history has been done with the prayer movement. It goes back to Pentecost. What were the disciples doing when they gathered together? They were in a prayer meeting. And the same is happening now. I believe God is setting up a prayer movement. Why? Because He's about to bring global revival. I believe, and I'm positioning this church to be a part of that. 2 Corinthians chapter 4 says He has given us a ministry of reconciliation. He called us to do that. Today's ministers, myself included, we spend a lot of time preparing sermons, counseling, strategizing, writing goals, making budgets, forming teams, and discipling, all of those things. Old Testament version of me spend their time doing either worshiping and lifting or on sacrificing animals. It was a bloody, relentless, filled job. It's not that bad. Why do they do these? Reconcile an unholy people with a holy God. They stand in the middle. They stand and they represent both. God represent the people. They say, God, listen, we know that I know that I come from an unholy people. Have mercy on us here. Take the blood of this lamb instead of our own blood. That's what priests do. They reconcile. They say, God, do not bring judgment here. Take the blood of this animal and have mercy on your people. Then they turn to the people and say, people, listen, I represent God. Here's his law. Here's what he says. He loves you. High standard you need to live up to. He's able you to do this. Represent both. Reconcile people together. People with God. And that's what you and I are called to do. We're called to be bridge builders. We're called to be makers. We're called to be mediators. We're called to sort of one eye on the holy and one eye on the unholy. Lord, how can two things come together again? Kohanim, ministry of reconciliation to the world. You guys with me? That's one. Kohanim extend the rule and reign of God on earth. They extend the rule and reign of God on earth. So God has not called us to minister as priests. He's called us to reign as kings. Peter says that we are a royal priesthood. We are a kingdom of priests. That's what Revelation says as well. We will be a kingdom of kings and priests. And they shall reign on the earth. What does it say we're going to reign? Does it say we're reign in heaven? No, what does it say we're going to reign? On earth. This is our domain, our dominion. This is what He's given us to reign over. Hey, you and I have full authority over the earth. And here's what reign means, by the way, because a lot of negativity can go with this. Even in my mind, I think of kings being these, the lords with all the power and the holding up the scepter, and they're like decreeing this thing, decreeing that thing, off with the head, or bring me whatever it is. I don't know. We all have this potential imagery, like ruling as a king is all about authority and privilege. But to reign means to accomplish the work of the king, capital K. You're going to reign as king, lowercase. But our job is to accomplish the work of the king, capital K, the name and the authority of the king. His work, that's what we're called to do, in his name and his authority. It's not ours, not our kingdom. It's not our kingdom to rule. It's his kingdom that we're going to rule Christ over. This is what made Jesus' ministry so powerful. Read through Mark, during the early chapters, it talks about how Jesus and he began to do incredible things, and people were amazed, not just at the signs that he did, they were amazed at the authority that he had. And Jesus would say some of the outlandish things, he would say, you have heard it said, he would quote something in the Testament, but I say to you this, have something different, as if he had the authority to sort of upbraid the law. But he had the full authority of the Father. That's what made Jesus so powerful. In reality, you and I, we have authority as well. The authority of the Father as well. I think we walk in it. We've been a couple of weeks ago in Kingdom Boot Camp, we're unpacking this a little bit. What does it mean to walk in authority? What does it mean that you and I have the authority of Christ? What does it mean that you and I can be kings? It means we can extend his reign. We know his heart. We're in his presence. We know what he wants to do. We have authority to speak those things into reality and to bring those things out. Not through power, but he's given us power. So can we minister to God in prayer and worship? We offer a ministry of reconciliation to the world. That's what we do. And we extend the rule, the reign of God on earth. Easy task, right? You guys ready to do it? Brian, come on up. I want to end with something in Hebrews 12. You can come on up. I can't see. I'm nearsighted, but wherever you are, you can kind of begin to make your way up here. Back to the mountain. And we're done with this here with just this little passage. 12:18. The writer of Hebrews, he's speaking to you and I now, speaking to the church. And I'll read it. For you have not come to the mountain. You have come to the mountain, may be touched, and that burns fire. And blackness and darkness and tempest. And to the sound of the trumpet and the voice of words, so that those who heard it begged that the word should not be spoken to them anymore. That mountain sounds familiar. It's the mountain of Exodus. And the writer of Hebrews says, you've not come to this mountain anymore. Verse 22, but you have come to Mount Zion, the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, to an innumerable company of angels. You know, we're surrounded right now by angels. Some of you can see them. Wish I could imagine them. I can imagine them all sitting up on the top of that ship right there, sitting in the pews next to you guys. We're surrounded by the visible kingdom of God all the time. To the general assembly, all of us, in search of the firstborn who are registered in heaven. Come to all of these, to God, the judge of all, to the Spirit of just men made perfect, to Jesus, the mediator of the new covenant, and to the blood sprinkling that speaks better things than that of Abel. To this old man, that's the old one. Fire and smoke and trembling, an unapproachable God. No, this is something altogether different that you've come to. Through the blood of Jesus, the gates have been flung for you. City, family, brothers and sisters. Go to verse 28. For since we are receiving a kingdom which cannot be shaken. Let's have grace by which we may serve God acceptably. So what do we serve? We draw near and serve. That we may serve acceptably with reverence and God's fear. For our God is consuming fire. Wouldn't it be great if it said, for our God was a consuming fire? It doesn't say that. God doesn't change. The God who sits the mountain is still the God that's here. And by the grace and the blood of Jesus, redirects his consuming fire. No longer is it a fire of wrath against you. It's a fire to purify you and to burn up all the things that come against you. Got that story in Daniel? 3 Hebrew boys, 3 Hebrew children, Meshach. Remember that story? Tied up with a rope. They were put into the fire. The Bible says the only thing that burned up was what? The rope. That's it. Smoke wouldn't even be on their clothes. Nothing at all. Just the things that bound them were burned away. God's a consuming fire. Consuming fire is burning with love for you. And I want you to hear this. I want you to hear words of identity to you. Let it be spoken to your heart now, morning. If you hear nothing else, hear him say, friend, sister, brother, mom, dad, you know all that I've done in your life. Seen how I've carried you through some difficult things. are going to be my special one, my treasured possession. I want you to hear the church. You're his treasured possession. Making you and us and all of us into a holy people. Share his character. And he's calling us to draw near and to serve. Let's stop. We're going to pray over us, and then just that. We'll have some time here. It won't be as late. I think we did some before the message, but we'll open it up. Put your hands out. Can I pray a blessing over you? So Lord, receive the voice of God that shakes. Receive, Lord, the truth of our identity. We are your beloved. We are your treasured possessions. We are a holy nation, Lord. And we will be Kohanim, royal priests. Father, by your grace, we draw near to you. By your grace, we draw near to the consuming fire. Father, I pray that just your fire will consume anything inside of us, Lord, that is not honoring to you. Anything that is holding us back from the mountain, that it would consume that. Any wounds, Lord, hurts, or roots of bitterness, Father, would you just consume those with your fire? Any afflictions, Lord, would you just consume those with your fire? And entangling sin, would you consume that with your fire right now? And bring freedom to your children, full deliverance, and full empowerment to your children. We bless your name, Lord Jesus. Amen. All right. If we pray over you specifically about some thing, or to receive the baptism of the Spirit, any of those things, I'll just kind of come down here just in a minute. I've done these and prayer councils here. I'm going to give you announcements before we go. By the way, welcome guests for joining us. I'd love for you to take a connection card at the back of the pews out. If you can take those to the back welcome center in the lobby, we have a gift for you. If you'll turn that in, we'll have a gift for you there as well. You can give different ways to give online at kingchurch.net/. You can text, or you can put cash or check in the boxes right back against the wall on your wall. Thanks for giving. Thanks for, by the way. Feast edition is coming up in 2 weeks. It's 24th. Big potluck meal that we all together here. Every single one of you needs to be here. Every single one of you. You do not want to miss this. Reverend, smoked turkey, all sides. If you're King's Church brother, I need you to step to bring some sides. So go to kingchurch.net/Thanksgiving and form where you can help us fill in some of the that we need to bring as well. And are you outing today at 7? Meet at 4 o'clock. You're going to go to Malachi's and have some parents. Make sure you're here at 4. I think that's it. All right. Hearts clear? Yeah, I'll give those one more time. We're going to. I read these earlier, but I'll give them again. You can pray. Heart of someone in the congregation had or has had one. Beverly, I think that's for you. I'll restore their heart. Not need to worry. Maybe it's for somebody. Molecular disorder. Their cells do not metabolize energy correctly. The energy in some places others. Someone's hip when they bent down to get something. Keon, by the way, coming up here, I'm going to lay hands on you. Place for Andra, okay? I see someone's vision is blurring out. The Lord is saying, allow me to fix what doctors fix. And finally, concentration of lipids in the blood. The Lord wants to remove those lipids. Or anything else you can pray for. To the front. The rest of you, you're going to go in grace and peace. I love you. Coming.